Welcome to all of you who are looking. Oh, the mic is on. Welcome to all of you who's looking or streaming. Looking at the streaming. I'm glad to present a very strong panel who's here with us today, consisting of broad representatives from the contemporary design scene here in Copenhagen. So welcome to you. We have Nicholas Aldride with us, who's co-founder of Moebe, a design company established in 2016. Then we have Joachim Pedersen from Menu. Menu is the old boy in class today, established in 1978, right? Welcome to you. We have Thomas Ibsen with us, creative director and partner at Please Wait to be Seated, which was founded in 2014. Then we have Christine with us, Julie Pedersen, who is senior designer and sustainability manager at Firm Living, a 14-year-old company here in Copenhagen. And last but not the least, we have Kasper Salto with us today, a very experienced industrial designer who has been in the field for more than 30 years. So we might call him a design expert. But thank you, all of you, for coming today.
Thank you.
We're here to talk about design, Danish Design 2.0. What can be characteristic about design now, leaning up on a very broad or long heritage of design in Denmark? We have a strong tradition. All of you probably here today know the story that started back in the 1920s, going forward with the Danish modern movement from the 1940s and 50s and 60s, which was a furniture and interior design, houseware design movement with very clean, minimalistic design, which all assembles the Danish way of living. So we have a strong tradition where the design focus on both the classical furniture craftsmanship put together with new kind of materials, a strong focus on proportions, and also how it can support the requirements of the human body. So that's kind of the heritage that we have. That also put together with the new, back in the 60s, the new ways of producing furniture that kind of allowed for a stronger focus on form than only functionality. So going from then to now, the present, what does the contemporary design look like today? Looking back and reflecting on the Danish heritage in design, but also looking forward and taking into account all the different challenges and demands that we meet globally today. For example, climate change, digitalization, urbanization, and of course also the big challenge that we're all facing today, the COVID-19. So, do we need to look at design? How is it built today? What does it look like? And yeah, that's what the focus is today. So I have asked the panel here to each take 5 minutes and do some reflections on how their design reflect both the Danish design heritage and at the same time meet some of the global demands in terms of climate change and etc. And what their design then look like. So without further ado, I'll give the word to you, Nicholas, please.
Majken, thank you very much. I think the easiest way for me to do this is to talk over products. So I brought one with me. And I brought one that I think kind of tells pretty well what we try to do with Moebe, at Moebe. It looks like this. It's a frame. I'm going to take it step by step. It comes flat packed. That's cool. It's in brown cardboard. Take it home, put that in the recycling bin. That's awesome. And then we make things in a way, we're always looking to try and find out how do you bring different materials and different elements together in the products that we create. We're not just happy enough that those lines or those curves look super fantastic. It's not good enough. It has to be able to be put together in a way, it's a word I hate, but smart. You know, You can glue something, weld it, fine. But it's a little bit toxic. You've got to be shipping air. It's not super great. So we try and go component-based. So with the frame, it's a bit like this. You have 4 loose lists, 2 pieces of plexi, and a rubber band on the outside that holds the construction together and is also how you hang it. And when I say it tells a lot of things, it tells things about, for instance, okay, cool. This list breaks, no problem. You can put the list in the recycling and we send you a new list. You don't have to throw away the whole frame. It talks about things like material choices, you know. We use plastic on the frame. Plastic is the devil, right? We all hate plastic. It's ruining everything. And it is, but it's also an amazing material, and it was the exact right choice, we believe, for this product. It's a material that's using less carbon to produce, significantly less than glass. It's lighter, so when you ship it, it's also better in a carbon sense. And it can be much longer lasting. It's much less likely to break. And if you get a scratch, it's cool. You can buy creams that we've started also supplying, where you can remove the scratches just by rubbing it with a bit of cream. So that's easy. But so what's important to us is that you have products, or you build products. We have shelving systems, mirrors, all this kind of stuff that are able to be repaired, that are going to last. So that's why we go component-based. But what we also do is, for us, it's super important. You know, you can make stuff, but when we're talking about this global climate agenda, stuff is also a little bit, why do we need more stuff, right? So if you're going to make stuff, you should try and make it in a good way. And this frame, we make it in Denmark. It's made out of oak from Europe that's from sustainable sources. Our packaging is FSC-based and recyclable. And I think we have to be really conscious of these things. And that leads back to the whole component basis. But what I want to kind of make a point on is that when we talk about the 2.0, sorry, that, you know, meaning we're moving from one, I would, to be honest, argue that at least we're trying, and I think we all need to go to more of a 3.0, because, you know, 1.0 was Wehner, Arne Jacobsen, Finn, these classics where they, you know, they were commissioned directly by a brand that was also the factory, right? And they made these things here in Denmark, and the craftsmanship was a part of the story of the product. It was a part of the making. And, you know, globalization's been amazing. It's allowed us to have a brand that is Danish Design and export it out there and do things that were never possible before. But it's also meant that we can produce things dirt cheap and ship it anywhere, anytime. And that's had a consequence that, you know, we're making things under bad conditions, and we're making them that are ruining the environment and people. And I think, to an extent, it's also had to be a little bit like that for Danish Design 2.0, what I would call it, where, sure, we've made some amazing designs, but we've also had to get a little bit dirty. When you get an influx of, of cheap stuff coming on the market, you need to compete, right? So, you know, the 2.0 for me is Danish Design, but maybe made a little bit in China. As much as we can try and hold our producers to account and, you know, want the transparency that, you know, these have been made in a good way, we can see when we look at the facts that over Eastern China, there's a hell of a lot of ozone depleting chemicals in the atmosphere that, hey, we all signed that we're not going to use those since the 1980s. They're still there, so someone's doing something, right? So we have to be better. So that's what I think the 3.0 has to be. It has to be also thinking about people and place a little bit more. And we try and do that, but we're not perfect.
No, but you're working towards it.
We're working towards it, you know, picking the right materials, trying to, you know, if you make in Europe, you're making in a place where you know we have environmental regulation. You know, it's not just you following up with the factory, but it's also going to be the authorities. And if it's not cool, it's getting shut down. You're lowering your carbon footprint straight away. You know, you're getting as local as you can. A lot of what we were able to do in the 60s was there because we had the craftsmen and we had the places, we had the industry, right? A lot of it's died. It's not that possible just to make everything now here. So we cast that net a little bit wider and we say that that's Europe for us.
So in your opinion, Danish Design 3.0 is the kind of assembles the building back better movement?
It's the building back better. It's the less is better. And I think actually that's what, as an outsider coming to Denmark, the thing that I've loved most about Danish Design. You know, we can say, and it is all these things that you spoke about, It's minimalism, it's contemporary, it's building with craftsmanship and quality. And I think, actually, as a society, Denmark has been super cool at embracing that and carrying that forward. That's why, when I came to Denmark, I thought it was crazy weird that everybody had the same stuff in the house, some Montana furniture and a Louis Paulsen lamp, and what's going on here? It's fantastic, because what it is that Denmark as a society celebrates good design. Yeah. It celebrates those things that are crafted, that are going to last. It's not just more crap for more crap's sake, because what is the opposite of that less but better? It's more but more, right? It's cheaper and more crap, and that is just the rubbish that has been crapping on the environment and people for so long, and it's not the basis of Danish design for me. So.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Moebe.
Thank you.
And Joachim, welcome to you from Menu.
Thank you.
Can you please reflect a bit about how Menu is working with both the Danish design heritage and reflections about that, but still moving forward into the new world, if we could call it that?
That was a good answer. Now I'm reflecting more on your answer than on my own answer. I think from Menu, you can say, taking the first question on how are we kind of, looking at it now, reflecting on the past, we're very focused to produce products that are sustainable in a lifetime, you can say, so quality, the form language, something that we want to live with for a lot of years. You can never say that a piece will become a classic before it has lived its time out. It's become a very pop word to use, classics, but it's really something that the time will show, and it's impossible to say whether it will or will not. But at least we are trying to work with some elements that we think will last, where simplicity is. Of course, all of you know our collection, so I haven't taken any pieces with me, but that's one of the pillars that we're working with, trying to see if we can make something that hopefully in 20, 30, 40 years will be something we look back at. While we're also reissuing old classics now, we are this 3 days of design relaunching some American modernist mid-century designs from a guy called Arthur Umanoff, which is, I think, a way for us to combine an international approach within the kind of our Danish brand and our Danish foundation, where we basically are rooted here. But I think also coming back to what we are doing well as a country, I think we've always been very well traveled, if you can say that. So taking the inspiration from all over the world and kind of making it our own. We have some very heritage materials that we often go to, for example, oak and so on, that I think are somehow influencing a lot of brands and thereby also kind of connecting a lot of brands, especially from Scandinavia. But I think taking, cultural bits and pieces from around the world and mixing with our own philosophy, and then designing pieces or products that can last. I think that's how we look at what we can also learn from the past. Who wouldn't want to make the new wishbone chair? That would be basically the dream for us as well to see. And then, of course, you have sustainability, which is the buzzword, I think, right now. And I think we're trying to figure out what that will be in more tactical level. Of course, we can make products that are produced in recycled plastic or all of that, but I think it needs to go a little bit deeper than just having a product, or you need to kind of rethink your whole, company way of working. I think, of course, you can have that state mark of a product that will open the discussion, but if you don't really go deeper than that, which I don't have an answer for now, I think it's a little hollow. So that's what we are spending a lot of time on figuring out, how should a sustainable brand be in the future. Right now we're located in the Auto, which is in the North Harbor. If you haven't been there, you're welcome to come there. There's a cafe and a restaurant, and it's kind of a mixed place where we collaborate with different industries. So there's Dukes are delivering beds, and Colon are doing shelving and so on. We're delivering the furniture pieces. So it's kind of a collaborative place where we can invite people together. And I think that's just kind of sums up that I think collaborations within a lot of different industries will be the future. I think the time where you kind of locked yourself in the room and only showed, you can see now when you are introducing pieces, it gets more and more popular to show the prototypes before they're introduced. Where I think if you just go 5 years back, you locked all the doors and you didn't show any of the process before it was launched. And I think that whole transparency is something that we as a brand needs to understand how important it is for people to know. Because otherwise, I think, especially the new generation, which is me, but also younger than me, they demand that they know more about the brand than just buying the product. So I don't know if that answers
Yes,
the
yes,
question.
it did, for sure. I think you have a very good point in us in Denmark being a very, very small country. The influence from other countries is so important, also when you talk about sustainability, because sustainability is not only about the material, it's also about how long-lasting your design is, right? So the life cycle of the design. So I think you have a very good point in us looking out towards the world and not only in or taking our design out of our belly button as a Danish DNA design, but that our DNA is collaboration with other countries. So thank you for that. Thomas, please.
Hello.
Wait to be seated, but the word is
Please wait
yours.
to be seated.
We're all waiting.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. Well, there's already been said a lot of very, what's the right word? Clever and right things for no. I'm going to start in a different place, I think. I used to be a photographer, so I'm not really a skilled designer. That means I'm not a designer at all. I'm not a production engineer. I'm not a guy that have learned about branding in some business school. Basically, what I've learned from being a photographer is using my eyes. And when I started, please wait to be seated, it's basically started upon an idea of, okay, if all these great companies can do this and I can shoot all these good pictures for them, I need to get on the other side and do some of these designs. And of course, that when I started that out, it was all about the design. It was really about what can I see with my two eyes. And what was everything below that, I didn't know anything about really. I had no clue. So we started it up, and finally, as the process went on, I figured out, God, there's so much to know, there's so much to do, and there's so many mistakes to make. And now we come to now the years has passed, and we have a collection of 25 pieces, and we have decided to not, of course we stand. I'll come back to that with the heritage, but we want to be an international brand really. So we try to work with international designers, and we try to work with young designers. That means a new generation. And the reason for that is really that I'm 53-year-old, and I have kids who are 20, 21 is my son, actually, yesterday. But anyway, I can just see that how they have a completely different approach to the designs that I think is nice in my generation. And I grew up crawling all around on Wegner's China chair and Arne Jacobsen's chairs, in my home. My father was in furniture as well, so they were tipping over and breaking, and they were just, so the heritage is a part of where I come from. It's so deep inside of, I guess, a lot of us in Denmark, this whole heritage. And today, when you're looking into what is this sustainability, and what can we do to make it a better world, because there is a change, and we need to make a change somehow globally in all perspectives. And of course, we as a company look into what can we do, and we try to look into materials and how can we transport less, and how can we have less plastic and wrappings, and all these, like I guess all of us do all the time. But I think we have realized that really talking to my children and to their friends, we don't even know what is to come when it comes to sustainability. I mean, we think of design as being number one. You have a good design, we do everything to make a nice design, and that's why we bring it to the market. But really, what is, and then right after that, we talk sustainability. How can we produce? How can we do, transport and so on? But I think, or we've been talking about in our company, we think it's going to be sustainability first. Within, I don't know if it's 10 years or 5 years or 20 years, I don't know. But at some point, I think there's going to be a demand of saying, okay, it's not only good for the eyes, it has to be good for the generations to come. And I think that's really, really a big question and very, very difficult to answer what's right and wrong and which direction. But I think if we start thinking like that, then we got to prepare for the future somehow. Even though that we are, I don't know how old everyone is here, but it doesn't matter. But you know, if you're 20 years today, you can see it with with Thunberg and everything has been going on just within the last election in Denmark. There's something needs to be done, and so I don't have any answers of what is correct and what should be done, but I think there's a lot bigger change coming at some point, and we better prepare for it in our line of business.
Yeah. Exactly, especially when you look into the whole consumption generation, where, I mean, you have the classics you were just mentioning, them, Wiener, Anne Jacobsen, etc. They still live. They still have their value when you go out to buy a new chair, right? Yeah. So sustainability is many things, I think.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
But I agree that it will become a design parameter for us in the future and maybe already. Yeah. Thank you, Thomas, and welcome, Christine, to you.
Thank you. Yeah, again, a lot of nice words and good topics have been said. At Fam Living, Fam Living is 14 years old, and it started out with wallpaper, so it's a totally different thing, and had involved into this more and more furniture, bigger items firm. So we have a broad range of products, and of course we have this topic on sustainability. How are we working with this green transition? What is the best way to do it? And as Thomas said, the global mega trend is that this movement is taking over the next big wave, and we are not even coping with sustainability. We are actually going to think even more in building back better, as you just mentioned. Even after this COVID-19, it's the sustainability topic has become even more important. And it's not about asking, why do we do this? It's about how do we work with this? So that is the whole period, the phase we are in at Fam Living, talking about this on all levels, from even the small products to engagement internally, the movement in the company, the way you behave in the company, or how you actually do in your daily life when you're not at work. So it's more in the balance of a life balance, you can say, instead of you have your work and then you do some sustainability at home, sorting out your trash. But it's the whole human you need to talk to. So how do you do that when you have a lot of products? You also have a business running. So it's all about doing this, doing good and doing well. So doing good is doing something better in what you do. Of course, we look at our supply chain, our materials, where do everything start? How is the design process? Can we think of doing this in another way? Can this be a disassembly? Can it be of only one material instead of 3 materials combined? All these kind of thoughts starting already in the design process. But of course, we also work very close with our suppliers, our co-workers, we call them. It's all about being transparent and trying to educate forth and back and pushing them to do better or offer us new solutions. So there's a lot of levels in it, but it's a lot about being honest and transparent, we believe, and that comes from a heart of the business, that's what we want to do, and reach out, and actually also in the business together, working more together, pushing the suppliers, pushing the way we do things in general, so we actually get a better sourcing, we get a better way of transporting, we get a better manufacturing in Europe. All these things are topics we are discussing in FAM and are trying to attend on different levels, micro level and macro level. So that's how we work. And it's a lot of mapping, but it's also moving in the right direction. And being partly Danish owned and being also owned by international investors, this is also a very much a topic. It has become a political strategic topic as well as a business topic. So it is a proactive process, and it is something you have to do to be future-proof. And we love that it comes from the heart in our company, and it is good business at the same time. Because we don't know the next generation. I'm almost your age. My kids are not that old yet, but we still don't. They totally grew up in another world, and we don't really get that mindset. But it is our future. Competitors, maybe, if we think we will last, and hopefully we will. So they are the future company builders. They are the future consumers. They are future citizens. So we really have to, embrace this. And I think we should, as companies should do it also together.
And you have a very good point that it will be a necessary thing to do. But I also think you have a very important point in being transparent and honest about how you do it and how you come across it. Because greenwashing is just in many different branches a big thing. And it's difficult to come across because as a consumer, it can be difficult to kind of sort out in what the different materials or product actually assembles. So thank you for that.
Welcome.
Last but not the least, welcome to Kasper,
Thank
independent designer over the last 30 years. Welcome.
It sounds a lot. And I think so many good things have been said, so actually maybe I shouldn't say anything. But I will, of course, and I hear things like greenwashing. I think that's a really interesting word because greenwashing is really bad. And of course, a lot of businesses are talking about sustainability in all their ways to market a product, and that's too bad. But I think my theme after hearing all this good stuff is maybe to focus on one thing, and that could be the approach of the designer. How can we, I'm not talking about the companies that are producing and outsourcing to the right places and the materials and all that. I'm actually talking about the very beginning, and the very beginning can be different. It can be a company that is contacting you to design an object. It can also be yourself inventing or finding out what the world needs. And I think both of the ways are very interesting, and I want to focus on the, you can say, the very beginning is interesting because as a designer we have actually got a lot of power in how we approach a new thing. It can be furniture, it can be anything. My own approach, just to mention that, is to make, I have always made not very much, but I really try to use a lot of time making my products because I really hate putting a lot of effort in my things and then I see them on the market for 1 year and then they go out again. I know many of you have tried that maybe also, but at least I have tried that sometimes, and it's really, I really hate that thought of working on something for 1 year, maybe 2 years, maybe not even maybe say half a year. That's also a lot of time that you just. So I'm talking about going into the first stages of a project, and it can be you thinking about the world needs this, and then you're starting from that, and then you are really doing a good research, and you are making an analysis of the things. Bottom line is it's like wine. I mean, the longer wine is put on the shelf, often the better it becomes. And I think it goes for design as well, that the more time you care about this item, you go around it and you say, is it good enough? Can you take the cork off, and can you replace it if it is broken? And also what you talked about, Moebe, is, I think that's really the future of design. Make less, but make better. And I think make better is not so easy actually, because we see more and more companies. I've been around for 30 years, as you said, so I've seen the furniture industry going from the old school, you can call it, and now you see a lot of new companies and also big ones that are making very interesting stuff actually, and the young guys, they love it. But maybe sometimes I have the feeling, it's just a feeling that maybe it goes a little too fast, because the bottom line of the company is important, of course. But I think maybe we should take a little step back. And I'm only talking about the designers because I cannot talk on behalf of the companies, of course. But as a designer, I think it's really important to really see what is needed out there. I mean, if you do another chair, please make the very best one of them all, and also the one that can stay on the ground for the longest time, because throwing out is in my view the worst thing that can happen. Even, I think, more important than, maybe a little controversial to say that, but even more important than making a product out of something that is not so recyclable, I think more important is that you don't need to throw it away because it's so good. So you will keep it, and your children and your grandchildren will have a joy out of it. So very simple to say it, but very hard to do it. But that's my philosophy.
Yeah. I think you have a good point that designers have an obligation to think in both time, how long could this product last, and be of a quality of a design that will keep on living, and at the same time incorporate new materials that have the sustainability within it. So thank you for addressing that. Thank you everyone for pointing out. I think one point that I would like to dig into is the whole design 3.0, that we are looking into something that is just not new design, but where sustainability is a design parameter in making new products. I was wondering if you as designers or companies experience that sustainability can kind of take over from the aesthetics or the functionality in the designs. Do you experience it as a problem, or is it easy solved?
I think you have to, if I can take that, not allow it to take over, right? I think it has to. Myself, I'm an architect, and the two of the chaps who are sitting here, I started with an architect and a cabinet maker as well, and we come from that background, we come from that design background. So when we're thinking of a new product, it's not a by thought. I think the problem comes if it is an afterthought. We have this great product, okay, we need to make it environmental, cool, we're going to do some bamboo, plastic, molded stuff. It's not really environmental, is it? You know, I think you have to bring it. It has to be part of the concept fundamentally, and I don't think it has to be too crazy hard, really. You know, we're making things in oak, aluminium, plastic. It's the same materials, but and we're not perfect. You know, it would probably be better just not to make anything, right? But the whole thing about if you can make something that doesn't get thrown away, then that's all the better, because hopefully you take off 10 other frames which would have got thrown away in the lifespan they had yours. But yeah, it can't be a plug-in, is what I would say on that.
Yeah. How do you experience it? Is it a dilemma in menu, or do you easily come around it?
It's a big topic, of course. I think it's maybe referring a little bit to what Kasper said. I think you shouldn't. The world has enough chairs; it will survive if you don't make your new shell chair or miniature wooden chair. I think that's important to know. So I think if you go into design brief to make something sustainable, I don't think that's a reason why enough to do it. I think it's definitely a parameter, and I agree with you, Thomas, that it should actually be something where you maybe look first at sustainability and then you look at the design. But I think foremost you also need to have a function and a reason to make it. And I think what we experience, I mean, from our little world, now just taking it very personally into moving into our new place where we are combining hotel with restaurant, with cafe and so on, we had a need for different kinds of furniture that could have different angles so it didn't make a mess. This way of looking at rooms, because also now we've seen that for a lot of years now, but office and home are melding together and so on. So I think making products that are talking into our lifestyle now, because we don't live the same as we did 50 years ago, and I think that also changed the design. And then I think it's important to look at, okay, so when we are, the wood, maybe FSC, and it needs to be knocked down, because otherwise, it doesn't make sense not to be able to do that, or stackable, whatever it might be. But I don't think making sustainable product is a reason to make it, if that you can say that. I think it's more the reason behind it, the function, and then you should definitely do your best to make it sustainable.
As sustainable as
Yeah.
possible. Yeah. I think you're right that you have to look at the need and demand for the product first. That must be the most sustainable way of going around design. Is it something that you in Please Wait to Be Seated have thought about, or have you had any obstacles when wanting to meet a demand or making a product where you couldn't find the right materials to do it?
Well, the funny thing is sometimes the material right in front of you,
Yeah.
and you just think that all chairs should be in ash or oak. But in all of Scandinavia, we have so many pine trees. And nobody uses pine. Nobody, really. A few. And when you say pine tree, you think about these beds from the 70s, these canising, as they call them, or shelvings or stuff like that. But you don't see many of the brands actually using just pine wood from Sweden. What they do in Sweden is when they cut the pine, they sow new immediately, and it grows really fast. So there is also, sometimes it's right in front of us. And I guess all of us have had oak and ash and, more expensive wood that comes from Austria or Italy, north of Italy or Germany. The latest chair we did, which we're just actually introducing now in 3D's design, is actually this little. It's a collection of 3 sizes of a bar stool, but we decided to actually try to produce it in pine. And the good thing is it's quite cheap to produce. It's very light. It doesn't weight so much. It's very easy, and it's actually the way we got away with doing this was actually making a nice chair. It looks like it's from Japan or something, but it's actually from wood from the backyard, really. Yeah. So sometimes my point is sometimes there is things right in front of you, and you don't have maybe just. There's a lot to read, a lot to know, and a lot of investigations to do the right thing, but sometimes it's right in front of you as well. So that's what we sort of tapped into this matter on this specific design that we just did.
Yeah. Well, I think you have a point in also looking into local material, because that's also a bit of a part of the value chain when creating new products. In firm living, do you look into I'm trying to get a hold on the whole future-proofing the products. One thing being the sustainability, one thing being incorporating all the global demands, taking inspiration from all over the world into account. How do you balance the different things? One thing being sustainable, one thing being contemporary and meeting the demands, and still holding on to a heritage here in Denmark.
So you can say when we start up the design process, it often starts with a word. And at this moment in the post-COVID-19, it's a lot about stillness. It's a lot about being present. So we go into the more emotional way of, trying to approach these themes. So we talk a lot about the situation we want to design to. So we design to a situation where you use your home as a where we use a lot of tactility. That makes you help you being present when you come home, when you sit in your couch. It's important what kind of upholstery you have, what kind of carpet. And of course, it's all more products in the world. But as I mentioned earlier, it is about doing better, getting on the journey, doing less, but still being good, and do a good business. We also employ a lot of people. We have a lot of things going on, which we also need to take care of. So it is a balance. But looking at the situation, we kind of create, no, but this is what we need. And some call us the feminine in the class. I think we are, and we are also a design department with only women. Very special also, I think. Of course, we use people from outside, expertise we don't have in-house, but mostly we actually design in-house. So I think we are more on the emotional side and still on the business side. But of course, we meet bumps on the way, as I think all companies that stands here and other design companies does. Can we get this material? How can we combine this? How can this be recycled? Can anybody take it back, or can we work with the take back thing ourselves so we can repair stuff? Or how do we tap into all this? But we work with, and I also brought a few things, small things, that I could put on my bike. A new material we started working with is recycled aluminium. This is a candle holder, a very small thing. This is from, cans or tubes we have here, old cars, whatever, melted down, reused, use very little CO2, can be, created into several different products. So that's a new material we're looking into. And then we use all the plastic we have in the world, like a lot of other brands, but we use it for rugs and for an outdoor chair. It's recycled bottles. We know exactly how many of these we have used for each of our products here, and they will never. You can't really use them up.
It's waterproof.
It's waterproof. They can be outside. You have everything you see here, but convert it into a product. But of course, there's a lot of products where we don't have the solution yet. And we ask our suppliers, can we develop something? What is the new in the business? But
so one
again,
thing is
the journey is the important thing, and the transparency is the important thing, and the engagement of wanting to do this. So that's, we have set the goals high, and when you set a high goal, you kind of tend to look at it. And that's the way we want the movement in the company and in our business.
I think it's a good point also that you have to start somewhere, right? You have new products coming up. Maybe you can build them better, but you still have old products in your design, so you have to do it step by step. You can't have it all at one time.
No. But one thing I would like to add, now we talk about this aesthetic sustainability, but here we also have I really think all of you have made very nice furnitures that really credits to be this aesthetic sustainability. But there's also a lot of greenwashing in the aesthetic sustainability, because it's a phrase you can just, but it will last forever and you will pass it on, so it's sustainable in that way. But that's also a topic or a discussion with more levels, in my opinion.
It definitely is. Kasper, I would like to ask you, with your experience, can you kind of identify how the movement has been in Danish design from obviously the Danish modern back in the 60s towards now in like 2 minutes? Thank you.
That's a good, that's a very big one, but I'll try. But I think one thing we can learn, if I can talk about that, from the 60s and before, of course, is that so many products, even though we as designers are not always so keen on hearing about a new Arne Jacobsen thing that is taken up from the drawer, we can learn that there must be a reason also, not only the storytelling, which is so important, but of course it's important to tell a story about a thing. But I think the reason that these things still are so relevant, and I think that's a good word here, is that they are actually made with a lot of care and a lot of craftsmanship and a lot of thoughts. I mean, they really used a lot of time designing their things at that time, and I think that's one of the reasons that they are still here. Of course, the materials and the craftsmanship is also very important, at least as important. But I have to go back to the first stage and say that it's also important that you are, as designer, that you really are not giving up on looking how people are sitting, looking how people are hanging pictures on the walls, and keep on inventing and try to make better things. Because in my view, if I have to put it very short, design is about take something and make it better. That's the very short version of it. Just one little example of the approach of inventing a new thing was back in 2005. I designed this little table for Fritz Hansen, and it was a part of a bigger series, coat hangers and magazine, to place magazines and all these things, trash bins, and the whole was taken off, and we worked for that for two years. But the only thing that came out of it was this little table, and that was because that we used a lot of time looking at the sofa table, you can say. I mean, it sounds very banal, but it's actually true. We wanted to make a new sofa table because the old one was sort of big, and some of them was very low, and some of them was, I mean, they were coming to a point where we needed to do something about it. And then at that time, I remember the Wi-Fi was being really good. We are back in 2003 here. And the Wi-Fi were becoming actually quite good, and we thought about the laptop as an item. We didn't know about the iPad at that time, but we saw that the laptop being so important for people in their homes, but also in public spaces. In the airport, we saw people sitting with the laptop and the wire and the coffee and the book and all this, and it was a mess. So that was the starting point of it. And then we thought, at home, it would be nice to have a little table that you could take with you, not only in the sofa where you're seated low, but also maybe at a normal chair. So we needed this function of being able to change the height of it. And I cannot tell you why, but this is the best-selling product I have at all times, and it still runs, and nobody sends it back, and nobody trashes it. Every person I talk to who have this one is still using it, and it's very functional. And I never tried to make a thing like that. I mean, a chair is a chair. There's a lot of chairs, but back to focus on what is needed out there. I think that's a really good question, and also try to make it so good so you never have to change it.
And would that be characteristic for Danish design in general, you think?
I really think so. I think, and also you asked me about the 60s and the 50s and the 40s. I mean, that's the DNA, I think, of that time. Is that is still why we are struggling as young designers, also young designers, with coming into the companies, because they always have, oh, sorry, we have an Arne Jacobsen chair here, we have to put on the market first. And that's fine. I mean, it's fine, but it's also a problem for the younger guys, you know. So one thing could be for the younger guys to really make something good shit.
That can last.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And create a demand, maybe.
Exactly.
Even.
Yeah.
Can I just say something?
Yes, please.
I'm just thinking there is also the other side of like the consumer, the people buying things, and there's been a pressure for many years of design, especially for chairs. You know, the price are becoming lower and lower and lower and lower, and people expect high quality, really, really high quality for almost nothing. So that's also, you know, something that we, I suppose, as at least some of us as companies, feel all the time. You want to do good, you want to do something which is really nice and it's done in the right ways, but that costs money. That means that the business you can make out of it, you have to take into consideration, and that makes it difficult. So I think there's also, and hopefully it will come as well with, you know, like new type of cars and new type of energy and all that, you know. Maybe there will be some, hopefully there will be some reflectments
Yeah.
from the consumer to actually want to pay for things which are well made and done sufficiently to be able to last for a long time.
Yeah, please.
I totally agree. I think we're in the same position. You know, you see someone launching a new sofa, a new chair, and you think, shit, they're cheaper than us. We gotta make a
how
new
do they do
one.
it?
Yeah. But I actually think if you go away from your kind of take your company head off and the business mind, I think if you also invest in taking the chances to make it a little bit better, or to, you know, investing in the story, I think people are actually ready to pay for it. I think we as brands are just too afraid to price ourselves out. So I think we actually sometimes can have a negative, you know, influence on each other. And I think it's not the customers always. I agree with you for like most of it, but I also think the customer don't think as we do sometimes as brands. We sometimes think we gotta make it cheaper, but they actually just want better quality. I remember we talking to a Japanese partner, and he said the most important thing here is that people can trust your product, so the quality, and not the price, because he knew that Danish brands were really focused on the whole affordable segment that we are so good at. But he said quality is much more important.
So you could maybe also talk about the consumer 3.0 as well as design 3.0.
Yeah, I think so, and I think especially talking about, I mean, I see myself as young still, but there's even like just, 20 years old. I mean, their world is just different. I mean, I remember we had a meeting with called influencer, like some guy was really good at Instagram, and it was funny because in his world, he knew everyone. Like I was like, how can you have such a big network already? And for him, it was just natural, and he knew everything about what we've done, what our collaborations, where, you know, normally you have to go through, and then we did this, and then we did this. But his world was just, it was always transparent. So he knew exactly why he went to Menu and not to some other brand. So I think it's also, we as brands we need to learn, get to know the people who are actually buying it sometimes, and not just pre-assuming that they want it cheaper. Of course, being commercial, and that has a big, but I think we can push that a little bit better.
Yeah, and also tell us why the products are a bit more expensive. It's because of the background in the product, right? So that you will be able. Before I give the word to you again, I'd just like to say to all of you, if you have questions, please just raise your hand, and the panelists can still answer maybe a few questions. Christina, did you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little thing to what you already said about the future citizens and the future consumers. Already, the consumers we know today have a different mindset on the back of this COVID-19. I think we haven't really seen it yet. And we are just doing as we usually do. Now we have this 3 days of design, launching new collections. But actually, I think the mindset, a lot of places in the world, is totally different. They want to have something more stillness, more present. You have used your time. Yeah, you have done, like you mentioned, Kasper, used a lot more effort to looking at the situation you want to design to, and what kind of feeling you want to embrace or find in people with your product.
Just want to add a little bit on the accessibility part. You know, I think it's the most crucial thing of all, because, you know, we struggle a lot with it. If you want to make things that are a little bit more environmental and people get a wage, it's tough because the market is totally skewed. It is. It has been cheapened for a long time. It's a crazy tough thing. I had a good point. What was that? The business model, yeah. But that was actually exactly. No, it's good you're sitting there. But exactly, you know, when we, you know, you talked to Tact earlier. I know that was one of your earlier talks, and they're cutting out retailers, right? They're just going direct. And hey, we love retailers. It's made our business possible. We deal with hundreds all around the world, and they do a great job for us. But every step that you have in a chain makes a product more expensive, right? So you have a producer, and then maybe you have a sourcer who deals with the producer. Then you have the brand. Then you have your agent or your distributor. Then you have your store, and maybe you have a branding agency on the side. Everybody in that chain needs to take take a cut. So, and that's fair enough. We also all need jobs, right? But how do we, if we're going to have to look at price and making things more accessible, maybe we do have to look a little bit at the model. Don't have an answer for it. We'd die tomorrow if we stopped selling to the shops that we love. But yeah.
Yeah. It's a good point, a bit out of the scope of today's discussion, but I agree with you that there are many steps in selling products.
If we're going to be accessible, we're competing, it's not just us guys, then you've got, the main market is, you got IKEA, you got H&M Home, Zara Home, all these guys, they're servicing a huge portion of the market and they're not holding themselves up to nearly as high a degree as the rest of these guys here. So how do we pull the masses with us? It can't be good enough that it's just the top 1%, right?
Yeah. I have one last question, if none of you have. I keep on addressing it, but I would like your words on how you would describe Danish design, contemporary design. If you could just pull in 5 words each. If you were to go out to Japan or China or South Korea, what would you characterize as the Danish design DNA 3.0 or as it is today? Nicholas, you're up first.
Less is better. Quality. Keep it simple.
Thank you. You okay?
I think open mindset for taking in bits and pieces. Like I said before, I think at least what I experienced is a little more than 5 words. Do quick.
Yeah, please.
But at least when I get proposals in from designers, I can often see if it's a Danish designer, and I can often tell what country they're from if they're not Danish, because I think Danish designers not so. I'm not a designer, so I can say this without closing myself. But they are often really good at taking in tendencies from around the world, and I think that is something that the new generation, I don't know if it's our curiosity or our kind of will to see the world, because we've always been small and we've been, a necessity for us has been to know the world and to have a market in the world, you can say, to survive. So, yeah, that was it.
Thank you.
Well, I was just thinking that since the world has become really global and everybody is following the same people on Instagram and getting the same influences constantly from all parts of the world, I sort of see that it's becoming more unified somehow. How the design is in Denmark compared to back in the days where the old good Danish guys, they actually did something that were not very common in the rest of the world. Where I think there is a tendency that since the world has become smaller a little bit, then there is, you could see a very good design from an Australian designer that could have been done by a Danish designer, and opposite. So I think there is a sort of an international theme about it, and also, people are traveling, and some of the bigger companies go to fairs across the world. That's China, Japan, Korea. There's also the American. Some of these big Danish brands that have come up the last 10, 15 years, are also very international. So I don't know if I see a Danish. I don't think it's so Danish anymore, really. Now I'm talking too much. I had 5. But one thing, I only have one word then, that is to dare. And I think what the old guys did was to dare a little bit. They did something that no one else has done, really, and they were pushing boundaries a little bit. And I think that is what is our obligation a little bit. That is to still dare to do something which is just not in the line of what everyone does. If we do that, I think we will somehow get the Danish heritage and the Danish everything. It will come automatically.
Thank you. Christine?
Yes. I totally agree. Daring is a good word. Being visionary, having a vision, having the inner energy to do something with our craftsmanship and our design. We have the design in our bones in Denmark, and I think that's all over our society. It's even how our society is built is also a design. They look from outside. So I actually think that, the kind of clear vision and honesty, and also the daring part. That's what we're gonna raise the flag for.
Okay, thank you. Last but not the least.
Yeah, I would say, of course, you can maybe still talk a little bit about craftsmanship, but that's not a lot, because the world has become one big thing. But I still think there's a thing that the Danes maybe could be a little proud of, and that is very often we are good at inventing new things, I mean, out of the blue. And I have one little example I want to mention here, and that is when the Corona time started 6 months ago. I think we were many that was a little bit curious and nervous maybe about how will this end up. And a guy calls me, a guy who actually has got a production company making UV light for the industry. And he told me that actually UV light can stop COVID from being active. It doesn't kill it, but it makes it out of action. It takes it out of action. So he talked to me, why don't we too make some UV furnitures? And I thought, what? I mean, I heard a lot of crazy things, but I've never heard a thing like that before. And I said to him, why not? I mean, that could be a pretty good idea. So we have been working, I would say, day and night since on a new project that we will launch very, very soon. And that's one thing, that's one example, I think, which is, we can be a little bit proud of the Vestas, the Lego, blah, 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 all that. But also small companies that are thinking out of the box. I think that's very, very Danish, actually.
Very Danish. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. So just to quickly sum up for you, if we are to talk about a design 3.0, I've taken that, and I bought into that. I guess some of the words you've all been mentioning throughout the last hour is simplicity. It's a holistical approach where we think not only of the design as an aesthetic form, but also as a function, as something that has a social responsibility. We have the visionary part, the daring part. We want to explore new options, and we're innovative. Maybe also because we're a very small country and we have to adapt to global tendencies or global needs. So that's something I would think would be characteristic for Danish Design 3.0. Thank you so much for today, and thank you all for joining us today also.
Thank you.
Thank you.